You know, I've spent a great deal of time contemplating the nature of addiction, and I've come to a rather startling conclusion that most people find quite uncomfortable. What if the thing that nearly destroyed you was actually trying to save you? Now, I realize that sounds absurd, perhaps even offensive to those of you who've suffered through the hell of addiction. But stay with me for a moment, because what I'm about to share with you might completely transform how you understand your struggle. You see, I've come to believe that the addict is not a weak person, not a moral failure, not someone who lacks discipline or character. The addict is a mystic who's lost their way, someone whose soul is reaching for transcendence but grasping at the wrong door. And here's what fascinates me. What if your addiction wasn't a curse at all? What if it was a calling? What if God or the universe, or whatever you want to call the fundamental ground of being, has been speaking to you all along through this very suffering? I want to explore with you today something rather profound, a complete reframing of addiction as a form of divine communication. And by the end of this, you may discover that you haven't been cursed, you've been chosen. Let's begin by understanding what we're really dealing with here. Society, in its infinite wisdom, looks at addiction through the narrowest possible lens: disease, dysfunction, moral bankruptcy, someone who can't control themselves, someone who needs to be fixed, medicated, rehabilitated. The whole approach is terribly mechanical. You're a broken machine that needs repair. But this completely misses the point, you see. Because what we call addiction is actually a spiritual crisis masquerading as a chemical dependency. It's the soul in revolt against the shallowness of ordinary existence. It's someone whose inner being is screaming for depth, for meaning, for connection to something vast and true. And when that connection can't be found through conventional means, the seeking becomes desperate, chaotic, self-destructive. I've often said that the addict is attempting to reproduce the mystical experience through chemistry. You're searching for God in a bottle, in a pill, in a powder. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep inside you remember that there's more. That ordinary consciousness, ordinary reality, ordinary life as we've constructed it, is simply not enough. The problem isn't the longing. The longing is absolutely sacred. The problem is the method. You see, the substance becomes a false prophet. It promises heaven but delivers hell. It offers a glimpse of unity, of transcendence, and then snatches it away, leaving you more isolated than before. But here's what's extraordinary. God has been trying to redirect you all along, not through punishment, but through the very consequences of the path you've chosen. There's a hunger at the core of addiction that most people simply cannot fathom. And I want to be very clear about what this hunger actually is, because it's been terribly misunderstood. It's not physical craving, though that's how it manifests in the body. It's not psychological dependency, though that's how the doctors diagnose it. It's something far older, far deeper. It's what I call spiritual homesickness. You see, for years you've probably told yourself the story that everyone tells addicts, that you lack willpower, that you're weaker than others, that if you just tried harder, if you had more discipline, more determination, you could stop. You could be like those people who have a drink and walk away, who can take it or leave it. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what's actually happening. That insatiable hunger isn't weakness at all. It's your soul remembering its true nature. You're not craving the substance itself. You're craving union. You're craving the dissolution of the illusion of separation. You're craving the experience of coming home to yourself, to the ground of all being, to the infinite consciousness that you actually are beneath all these layers of identity. Every addict is a mystic who's forgotten what they're looking for. The substance gives you a glimpse for a few hours, perhaps even minutes. The walls come down, the ego quiets. You feel connected, whole, complete, and then it ends. And you're back in what I call the prison of ordinary consciousness. So you reach again, not because you're chasing pleasure, but because you've tasted liberation and you simply cannot forget what it feels like. Your hunger is absolutely holy. You're just feeding it poison. Now, here's something quite remarkable about the process of addiction. It systematically dismantles the ego. Addiction takes everything you thought you were and reduces it to rubble. Your career, your relationships, your self-image, your pride, your certainty about who you are and what you're capable of. One by one, every pillar of your constructed identity falls away. And while you're in the midst of this destruction, it feels like pure annihilation. It feels like you're losing everything that matters, like you're failing at the fundamental task of being human. But there's an ancient teaching here that we've forgotten. The false self must die before the true self can emerge. You cannot pour water into a cup that's already full. You cannot build something authentic on a foundation that's rotten. What addiction does, you see, is strip away everything that isn't essential. Every mask, every pretense, every story you've told yourself about who you are, the job title, the relationship status, the reputation, the carefully constructed personality that you believed was you. And when all of that is finally stripped away, when you're empty, hollowed out, reduced to your absolute essence, that's when there's finally room for something real. That's when grace can enter. That's when your true nature can reveal itself. You weren't losing everything. You were being emptied to make room for God. The breaking open is not the end of your story, it's the beginning. Here's something they don't tell you about addiction, and it's quite fascinating. It's often a symptom of feeling too much, not too little, too much. Addicts are frequently people with what I call raw nerve endings. You experience the world in high definition while everyone else seems to be watching standard quality. The joy is sharper. The pain cuts deeper. Beauty is overwhelming. The suffering of others isn't something you merely observe, it's something you absorb into your very being. For years, you've probably thought this was the problem, that you're too sensitive, too emotional, that there's something wrong with your wiring, your ability to cope with reality as it is. So you learn to numb it, to turn down the volume. The substance became a buffer between yourself and the overwhelming intensity of simply being alive. But your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a capacity. It's the ability to receive signals that others simply cannot detect, to perceive layers of reality that most people filter out, to sense the subtle frequencies of existence that require a different kind of antenna altogether. Those who are chosen to carry messages must first be able to receive them. Your heightened sensitivity is divine circuitry. You're built to channel something, to transmit something, to bridge something. The raw nerve is not the problem. It's the instrument. You just needed to learn how to play it. At the deepest level, addiction is an attempt to solve what I consider the fundamental human crisis, the feeling of being separate. We walk around in these bodies, locked inside these skulls, experiencing ourselves as isolated units navigating through a hostile universe. And the loneliness of this isn't just emotional. It's existential. It's the core wound of humankind.